Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Sharing my screen here. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Great. Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Adam Desjardins. I am the programs manager at Culture Source. We are a regional arts service organization located in Southeast Michigan, headquartered in Detroit, but we work to serve and work with the regional arts and culture community, lots of arts and culture organizations and artists and collectives in the 7 counties of Southeast Michigan. We do that through our programs, through our re-granting opportunities, and also through research too. So today we have a really quick program. That's why I'm talking so fast. It's only 30 minutes long. It's called How Do I Do That? And it's with Rochelle Riley and Lisa Sauve. So I'm really excited to have them, introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their work and how they've done it. This is a part of our symposium called Watch This Space, which is a public art symposium as a part of our work with Mural Arts Philadelphia. It started on Monday with an international panel. We're doing 3 of these really quick How Do I Do That programs, and then we're finishing it off on Friday with a conversation with Jane Golden, who's the founder of Mural Arts Philadelphia. Again, we have another How Do I Do That tomorrow, which features Ajra Al-Ghali from Live 6 Alliance and David Anderson from Bloomberg Philanthropies. That one will be really great too. Friday, a conversation with Jane Golden, who is just really phenomenal. You should really carve out some time to listen to her speak. And then next week, we'll be sending out the recordings of the programs and then also some blog posts commissioned by artists working in Southeast Michigan that, kind of encourage you to get off the online space and actually go see some of the pieces that are some of their favorite works throughout the region. Also, just a random PS too is that our Creators of Culture grant program is open right now, and it's geared towards artists and venues. So let people know that there is funding available for them if they are an artist or a venue in need of some support. This is all a part of Detroit Month of Design. Detroit is the only UNESCO designated city of design in the United States, which we're really proud of. And Design Corps Detroit, which is one of our members, does a really great sort of celebration of this designation every September. So this is a part of that programming. You can check out the rest of their schedule at designcorps.org. A huge thanks to our symposium partners, Live 6 Alliance and the Mural Arts Philadelphia. We're a part of the Mural Arts Institute with Live 6, and it's been a lot of really great learning and sort of being able to share out topics and conversations in public art as they relate to our work in arts and culture. Lastly, a huge thank you to all of our partners who support our work, from programs to re-granting opportunities to research and beyond. We're really grateful for all of their support and thought partnership in our work. Enough from me. I am going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'm going to pass it over to Lisa Sauve, who will be giving us a little bit of a how-to of, or how did she do that and how is she currently doing that, and as it relates to her work with the Ann Arbor Art Center right now. So Lisa, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Adam. Let me add. Cool. So yes, hi, I am, actually, let me go back. There we go. You didn't see all that. I'm Lisa Sauve. I'm co-founder and principal at Synecdoche Design, a design make architecture studio. And I got involved in the Art Center, Ann Arbor Art Center, through kind of multiple facets. But the most recent thing is that I'm spearheading with a great committee, Art in Public, to make A2AC Murals happen for its inaugural year. So how's it going? We're going for 12. And this is the kind of the first year. This was our target. What's happened so far is we've got 5 done. You can see them here. Gary Horton, Chris Dokebi is right behind me. W.C. Bevan, Living Color, and John Sauve got added as a sculpture as well. We have 3 in progress right now and 4 on deck for that full dozen. So what do we do? 3 in progress. Why are they still in progress? Why isn't this kind of a big launch? The goal was to make them all happen, over a week, but between COVID and learning curves, things that happen, getting approvals, 3 of the 12 are in the historic district in Ann Arbor. And so what that means is we needed approvals. 2 of those murals are on currently painted walls, and 1 is on an original material surface. And so we had to put applications together for all 3 of those walls to show the amount of area that we were covering, the type of work that was going to happen, the application process, and an example of the work. And so knowing what types of permits and approvals you might need outside of just like a building owner and the artist is important. Other kind of conditions might be the building department if you're doing more attachments or sculptures. So talking to your municipality was an important part on the front end to get ahead of and know what to expect. 2 of these were administrative, which was pretty quick, but 1 has to go through committee, which means it has to get on a docket. We have to wait a month and then get approval. So going through that whole application process. 4 on deck. Why are these still kind of like waiting along? Learning curve number 2, contracts and who to include. So there's a lot of people to involve in a murals project. The facilitating organization, which for us is A2AC, Ann Arbor Art Center. The building owner, if there's a building manager, since there might be maintenance involved. The building tenant, if there's certain branding that they do or don't want included on their building. Any sponsors, that could be a building tenant, it could be an external sponsor, a corporate sponsor, or an individual, and the artist. So there's a lot of people that might want to say, deciding who has a say contractually, and then making sure everybody feels a balanced approach and representation. We spent a lot of time making sure that artists were advocated for and covered and protected within our contracts. So here you'll see make lists and labels, getting a lot of stuff organized. You can see we have a huge checklist with a whole series of things for each mural. This is just a screenshot of my emails so you can see how much to go through just to coordinate back and forth to make sure everybody's voice is heard when you include those things. So what comes next? Repeat. So this is just an example of several of the murals, ways that we even get representation to communicate with building owners and tenants in the historic district, being clear with the artists what information we need up front outside of them showing up to paint a wall. Those are the types of things that we have to prepare on the back end to actually make the thing happen on the wall. So yeah, behind the actual murals and the process, things that need to happen, organization, spreadsheets, emails, labels, coordinating all that stuff, and making sure you have a strong organization with clout like the A2AC that can really advocate and get people behind with support throughout the process. A vision and goals. For us, we were in the, we're trying to establish a creative district downtown. And so I think that came into selecting the walls, selecting the artists. You can see we have a diverse showcase of artists, a lot of women and a lot of people of color. That was part of like who we were inviting to represent this first year, and understanding the background, the approvals and process that are required, contracts, permitting, and funding mechanisms and those sorts of things. So generally, things that you need: art, wall, money, things in the background to make it happen, contracts, process, and organization. And that's how we made it happen.
Great. Thanks so much, Lisa. You did that so quickly. I'm shocked. And then I'm going to pass it along, just to keep things rolling, pass it along to Rochelle Riley, who is the director of the Arts, Culture, and Entrepreneurship department at the City of Detroit. So Rochelle, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And I will share my screen. I was asked to, first of all, hello everyone who joined in. I'm so thrilled to see you. I was asked, first of all, to talk about the Power to the People street mural that we did on Woodward Avenue in less than 7 days. That started with a group called Detroit Heals Detroit, teenagers who help each other heal from trauma, who sent a note to City Hall saying they wanted to paint a street. And I said, well, we've got a street. And I didn't think it would come that quickly, but then Charity Dean, who's the head of our Civil Rights Opportunity and Inclusion Office, said, we're going to have Juneteenth on Friday the 19th, in a week and 1 day. do you think you can do a street mural by then? And as a former journalist, I always love a deadline. So I said, sure. So those students from Detroit Heals Detroit, there were 10 of them, were paired with 10 students from Detroit Public Schools Community District. And they got together and went through, I did an open call for an artist, and they had to make a presentation in 24 hours. And they chose the artist, and they chose the amazing and well-known Hubert Massey to paint the mural. So they got to paint the mural with one of the best muralists that we have in the country. This was his design. They chose his phrase. There were several people who wanted to do everything from Black Lives Matter to fight the power to whatever. And they said this was something they had not heard, and they didn't want to do what everybody else was doing. So that was the Power to the People mural. And then just a short time later, I was asked by the mayor to come up with a way to honor the victims of COVID-19. This happened because he has regular calls with constituents. And in April, on one of those calls, this woman who lost her mom said, we haven't had a chance to grieve. We can't have funerals. The city needs to do some type of memorial. And the mayor said, you're right. And he turned to me and said, okay, do something. And as someone who absolutely backs what Governor Gretchen Whitmer is doing to keep us safe and believing in social distancing, I knew it had to be something that did not draw people together. We could not gather. And around the same time that we were having this conversation about what to do, the Dream Cruise that's held annually, where, you know, it's this gas parade where people drive cars up and down Woodward, we all know what that is, it was canceled. So I said, well, maybe we can do a memorial cruise. And then I said, maybe we can do it on Belle Isle so it's controlled. And then I thought, well, you can't just drive around. You have to have a reason for it. And I thought, well, none of these people got to have a last conversation, a last look, a last wish with their loved ones. So why don't we let them have a last look? So we solicited from all the families that we could a photo, their favorite photo of their loved one. And out of the 1,500 victims that we were honoring, I'll go to the next slide. There we are. We needed 1,500 funerals. We couldn't have 10 people in a church, so we found a way, and it was to do this memorial drive on Belle Isle. So we did that by asking the mayor to declare August 31st Detroit Memorial Day, which it will be every year. And that Monday, families drove in 15 funeral processions around Belle Isle to take a last look at loved ones lost to the global pandemic. It accomplished three things. It gave the families a chance for some closure, and to a person, they all said this was something that really helped. And we left the photos out there for a couple of days so they could go back again and again. We couldn't make it a permanent memorial, as some people asked, and we couldn't leave them longer than those 2 days because a big storm was coming and we didn't want them to get ruined, because when the whole thing was over, the city gifted those photos to the families. As the first families crossed the bridge, Mayor Duggan called on the entire city to ring bells for 15 minutes to honor the 1,500 victims that we lost. And the work began with this memorial team soliciting those photos, as I said, and we did it that way because we'd have to have permission because of HIPAA to display their favorites. So we could not go and find them. They had to come to us. And then we spent a day alphabetizing the billboards for the trip to the island. And yep, that's me, alphabetizing billboards in a warehouse. This is a picture of the volunteers. The photos were put out over 2 days on Saturday and Sunday in time for Monday Memorial Day, and there were amazing volunteers. This is Margaret Gore, St. Clair Shores. They made sure the photos were straight. They made sure they were cleaned around so people could see their names. They made sure that if there were balloons or things that were tied, they were tied tightly so when the families came back on Monday, the balloons that they left on Sunday were still there. And the day began with a brief ceremony where Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist, Mayor Mike Duggan, and our amazing sponsors, who included Gary Torgow from TCF Bank and Pamela Alexander from the Ford Foundation and Darian Driver Hudson from United Way. They were our three major sponsors. Ford was the presenting sponsor, and TCF and United Way sponsored the repast, which is a huge tradition in Detroit and across the country, actually, because you couldn't take potato salad and pound cake to anybody's house. So we provided vouchers for families to have dinner and pick it up and take it home and have dinner with their families. But the governor spoke, the mayor spoke, and then the mayor called for those bells to ring. That was the route around the island so that people could have a chance of seeing where they were going. But we also had 50 volunteers lined up to help guide them and to offer Kleenex and water. And this is a piece of art that's the lasting memory from it. I asked a friend and former colleague, Eric Milliken, to take all of the photos of the folks who died and do something with it. So his initial effort was to do something that showed the skyline of Detroit with the Ren Cent. And I said, no, that doesn't quite do it. Try the Spirit of Detroit. And he spent 11 hours in one night doing this, which tells the story of how horrible this pandemic has been to our community. So that is how we did it. And the response from the families, which was the most important, was amazing. We did everything from got phone calls and cards. I got a beautiful card and a basket with some cookies and tea in it that I have to check with legal to make sure I can keep. And we also had letters and emails from families. I also had phone calls with almost 100 families who just wanted to talk about their loved ones because they hadn't had a chance to have a eulogy or to say how great they were. So I spent a lot of time with the families, as did our volunteer coordinators, Brianna Sullivan, who handles volunteers for the whole city, and Malia Howard, who handled logistics for the whole project, and then Ray Solomon, who's their boss, who was out with us pounding signs and I was out with a weed whacker the night before. It was truly a labor of love for a lot of volunteers, almost 200 of them. And that's how we did it.
Thanks so much, Rochelle. Really, really great to see your work and see how quickly it all came together too. And thanks, Lisa, again, for sharing your work too. I mean, both are just, I'm so shocked at how logistically complex they are for such, I would assume, small teams too. So just to kind of start off with that sort of idea as like, upon reflecting on the logistics and how fast-paced it's been for you, and whether it's been, you know, putting up lots of murals in a very short period of time, which is, you know, still continuing, or whether it's been, you know, putting the Power to the People mural right on Woodward in just a matter of days, and almost similarly with the COVID memorial. In terms of your reflections on the logistics, is there anything that you're like, oh, next time we have to, you know, do something super fast or super quickly, this is like, I'm going to take this with me, or like any sort of tips you have for how kind of that quick thinking or, you know, making it happen in a very quick manner is possible?
No. The only thing I would do differently is find a way to, it was so hard to tell people that, you know, we're doing this for the city of Detroit because it was 1,500. That's what our budget would allow. There were so many people around the region who loved this idea and wanted to be included. And there were also people who didn't die of COVID who wanted to be included, and it would have made the numbers so huge. We're now meeting with folks around the region to continue to honor our loved ones who are lost, because they're still being lost every day. And we also want to do something for people who weren't able to have a funeral during the pandemic. They're still victims of the pandemic. So there's going to be something else. There's a bunch of discussions going on and a bunch of things that we want to do. And I've also gotten some calls from around the country and a couple of other countries about doing something national. There are folks who want to see photos like that stretched along a highway across the whole, you know, of America. I don't necessarily want to be the person to do that, but I could if called to service, because you'd have to do it state by state. I just think it means so much. Oh, I'm sorry, I was talking about the three things we got. So it was the family's gratitude, and for people to see how serious this is. You cannot drive past all those faces and not see how serious this pandemic is. And of course, the other one was to create a huge public art installation, the largest in the city. It's something that made people feel better. So those were the three things. So yeah, I mean, we want to do more. Anytime you do something that turns out well, you want to do more. I want to do more.
Yeah, and then Lisa, in terms of logistics on your end, like how has it been, you know, balancing it, or like upon reflecting of like, okay, this is a huge thing to take over, you know, like how do we make it happen? Like, has there been a sort of grounding thought or perspective as you?
Yeah, well, so there's the logistics on the back end. We've had a great committee and team members at the Art Center really helping out, making all of that happen. But I think on the front, like when the murals happen, it's not just that you get an artist to a wall and you say good luck. It's the whole experience of wanting artists to connect with each other, to be welcomed into the city, since many of them aren't, you know, from the area, and what that entire experience is like. And so for us, I mean, I got a call. It was like, hey, my battery died. Can you come and give me a jump? And it's like, yes, so we'll be there in a minute. So like having kind of a hotline for those sorts of kind of unexpected things to really help the artists do their best work and not worry about, you know, the unexpected outcomes too. I think that's really important, like supporting the artists, not just with, a living wage. You know, we asked every artist to provide a quote for their fee. We didn't have set fees. Some mural festivals also have kind of minimal fees. We said, what is your price? And we will fundraise to it. And so I think that was always, when I say set your vision and goals, it's about making sure the artist is taken care of, and that they have a place to do their work.
Love that. So kind of on that note too, in thinking about like the community of artists that you work with, or just largely like the communities you work with, you know, normally public arts projects have very, like, they kind of go through a process of community design or sessions, or, you know, attending meetings in neighborhoods, or whether it's a downtown development district. It, you know, really does involve a lot of in-person meeting before something can happen. And, you know, we're in this very strange time where you guys have clearly made public arts projects work in a time where you can't actually convene or kind of, you know, ask these questions or bring a group of people together to really, you know, thoughtfully plan something. So I'm wondering, and there have been a few questions in the Q&A chat too, how have you guys managed the sort of community voice, like involving community voices within your projects or in the work that you've been doing? And also, like, how has that maybe changed since before, you know, what you were doing? Or, I mean, Rochelle, yours was very, very quick. Lisa, I have a feeling yours was a little bit more in the works pre-COVID too. So in thinking about community voice and input, how have you approached that during this time?
I can start just by saying I don't know that either of these projects could have happened this quickly had I not been a columnist at the Free Press before I took this job. In 20 years, I pretty much got to know everybody in the city and most people in the state. So when it's time to get something done, I could do it probably more quickly than someone else. I do want to take a minute to say that I need people to understand that Detroit ACE, Arts, Culture, and Entrepreneurship, is an office with two people. Kim Theus, my chief of staff, and me, which means everything we do is done through volunteers, help with community, and help with other departments. I partnered with the Department of Neighborhoods to do this. So all of these folks who helped, from Mona Ali out of District 7 to Carla Henderson out of District 1, all of these folks literally came together from their day jobs and while they were doing their day jobs to do this. And all of them were talking to the community while this was all happening to make sure we got pictures, to talk to people about what we were doing. But when it comes to art projects, I always do open calls and I always pay people. When we did the Power to the People, we paid a commission to the artists, and I also paid each of the kids because Detroit ACE believes in paying people for work. The memorial was the first time we did everything with volunteers, although I'm going to buy meals for the team. But I think that if you work with people who are talking to the community all the time, it helps.
Yeah, for us, I mean, this was slated to happen in June along with the music festival, right? And so all of that went on pause, and we had to refigure out, like, how do we do this that we don't want to have a lot of people showing up when murals are happening, but really be able to come out of their homes and see new work coming up. So it pivoted, but we've been having these conversations from the previous year. We were talking about a creative district. So we were talking with local stakeholders, artists, the DDA, you know, municipal organizations about what a creative district looks like. And then we also had multiple meet and greets with artists in Ann Arbor, sculpture artists, painters, performance artists, like, to just say, what do you need? And we thought, you know, the creative district really helps establish a more public facing side of the creativity in Ann Arbor. But that was really kind of one of those opportunities, well, many, you know, there were probably 6 or 7 meetings between artists and DDA, municipalities and stakeholders to just talk about what's the first big move that we do, what's needed, you know, what can we do, and how do we, like, push that towards the bigger needs in our community. So that was kind of, yeah, a lot of conversations in 2019.
Yeah, and I'm hearing a lot of, like, radical partnerships and kind of new ways of working with you know, on your end, Rochelle, like municipalities and parts of the city government, which might not, you know, normally be thinking arts right off the bat, right? And then Lisa, in your work, you know, working for an arts organization, but then also in a business district and lots, you know, trying to navigate walls with historic, you know, significance to them too. So as you guys have kind of navigated those relationships and connections too, is there any, like, kind of, like, this is my one tip for folks, like as they're trying to like, as you're pushing to be an arts advocate in a way for an arts focused project, but that really could use the support of maybe a non-art sector, if you will, you know, even though businesses and city municipalities and kind of every facet of our world can be artistic and creative. Is there a tip that you have in there for kind of bringing people into the arts fold as you've done this work?
Well, I can tell you probably the greatest tip I can give you is don't make assumptions about who people are. Don't assume that somebody can't help. Don't assume that somebody isn't an artist, and don't assume that somebody doesn't love art and music and culture. You know, Detroit is art of all kinds. So you never know who you might tap by making sure that you tell everybody what you're doing. I don't look for particular groups of people, you know, to work with, or, you know, my goal is to make sure that there's inclusive opportunity in arts, which is why I do open calls for everything, to make sure every artist has a chance at whatever it is that we're doing, instead of tapping someone that we know is good, saying, hey, we've got this thing that we want to do, come on in. That has been received very well for people who, you know, said, well, you know, half the time we hear about some great project when they're announcing who's doing it and we didn't know about it. I don't want that to ever happen again. So just make sure that you're including everyone you can, and that means telling everyone what you're doing.
Agreed. I think that's a big thing. I think for us, this is the first mural behind me that Chris has ever done. There's a couple new to murals. Some have, it's the biggest wall they've ever done. And so it really is just saying, like, we have an opportunity, who's interested? And that was where we got a lot of introductions for artists. I really came on board to consult because as an architect, I work with a lot of building owners. And they see the kind of value in design. And I think seeing the value in arts and culture isn't a hard shift to make when you start to really talk about how the built environment and how people experience it is just part of their well-being. And so it really is just how you talk. It's not just paying for art on the wall. It's a person in your community. It's the impact about walking down the street. And I think just figuring out how to talk to people about it gets everyone to buy in, appreciate it, and really like make it happen together. So there's nobody outside of the arts community. It really rolls them in pretty quickly.
I love that. Nobody's outside the arts. Thanks, Lisa.
No, not at all. Yes. And it also, you know, reminds me of, you know, we're having this conversation with Jane Golden on Friday too. And one thing that I really learned from her and listening to her all the time, I mean, just being a fanboy in all honesty, is, you know, she says, you know, you can put up a mural, but also who's going to take care of it in 25 years too? You know, who is protecting and, you know, looking after that mural in the way. And I think you both are kind of saying this thing of like, well, if we bring everybody around it and we can, you know, get as many voices in the mix as possible, you know, no matter where they're at, then I think that mural or that piece of public art, you know, whether it's just up for 2 days, in your case, Rochelle, or whether it's something more permanent, you know, I think that there's a real sort of team effort that's created by that kind of work. So yeah, I just really, you know, commend you both for making it happen in that way. And I guess one last question too is in thinking about like the future of the work. Rochelle, you kind of talked about it with like, you know, we could do this on a highway, but also just in the future of public arts work in both of your kind of positions. What are you hopeful for? What are you thinking about currently, and you know, and how you can just make things happen like this again, having been doing this during a pandemic, which is already, you know, enough of a challenge.
My two biggest goals are to make sure that our creative community and our creative economy are not casualties of COVID, and that we come out on the other side of this really strong. And what you just said, we want to make sure that we build some community ownership of everything we do. So that means, you know, you want people to be so proud of what it is that they all want to take care of it. They all want to make sure that something stays, which is a part of the city's responsibility, and why I'm so glad there's an office that's responsible for that in Detroit now.
So Ann Arbor is very, you know, town and gown perspective, and we have a strong creative community. And so to make that very present to the public and then advocate for workforce housing, studio space, safe studio space, and more community. I think those are really important so that creatives feel like there's a home in Ann Arbor and that there's a place for them, because I think Ann Arbor can be very tech and university focused, and there's a place for a lot of other contributions as well.
Sounds great. Well, thank you both so much for sharing your time and your expertise. I mean, I'm just completely blown away by the work that you both have done, and it's really great to be able to share this digital space with you in just a mere 30 minutes. So thanks again for joining us for How Do I Do That? We'll be doing one more of these sessions tomorrow, and it'll be another really interesting conversation with Bloomberg Philanthropies and Live 6 Alliance based here in Detroit. So thanks again to Rochelle and Lisa. This is the part where we all, have a huge applause, but instead we'll just go back to quietly being on our computers. But for the meantime, thanks for brightening my day. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Adam.